Judge Patricia Morgan walked into her courtroom that Tuesday morning like she had done thousands of times before. Her black robe swished softly as she moved to her chair behind the big wooden desk. The morning sun came through the tall windows and made everything look bright and clean. She had no idea that this day would be different from all the others. The courtroom was quiet except for the sound of papers being shuffled. Two lawyers sat at their tables getting ready for the case. At one table sat Lisa Bennett with her lawyer. Lisa was a thin woman with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a blue dress that looked like something she might wear to church. Her hands shook a little as she looked through her papers. At the other table sat Kevin Bennett with his lawyer. Kevin was a big man with thick arms from working construction. He had short black hair and wore his best suit, which looked a little tight on him. He sat back in his chair like he owned the place. Sometimes he would look over at Lisa and smile, but it was not a nice smile. Judge Morgan had seen this kind of case many times. A husband and wife who got divorced and now they both wanted their child. She knew these cases could get ugly fast. People said mean things about each other. They brought up old fights and old hurts. But she also knew that somewhere in the middle of all the fighting was a child who just wanted to be safe and loved. She opened the file on her desk and read the names. Kevin Bennett wanted to see his 7-year-old son Danny more often. He wanted joint custody, which meant Danny would live with him half the time. Lisa Bennett did not want this. She said Kevin had a bad temper and that Danny was scared of his father. Judge Morgan looked up at the people in her courtroom. She had learned to read faces over the years. Lisa looked nervous and scared. She kept looking back at the doors like she was waiting for someone to come in. Kevin looked confident, maybe too confident. His lawyer had told her that Kevin had changed, that he was a better man now. The bailiff called the court to order, and Judge Morgan began the hearing. Kevin's lawyer stood up first. He was a tall man in an expensive suit who talked in a loud, clear voice. "Your Honor, my client, Kevin Bennett, is a hard-working man who loves his son very much. He has made some mistakes in the past, but he has worked hard to fix them. He has completed anger management classes and has a steady job. He has a nice apartment with a room just for Danny. All he wants is to be a good father to his boy." The lawyer showed papers to prove that Kevin had finished anger management classes. He had letters from Kevin's boss saying he was a good worker. He had pictures of Kevin's apartment showing Danny's bedroom with new toys and a small bed with a blue blanket. Judge Morgan listened and made notes. The papers looked good. The apartment looked nice. But she had learned that papers and pictures did not always tell the whole story. Then Lisa's lawyer stood up. She was a small woman with gray hair who spoke in a soft voice. But Judge Morgan could hear the strength behind her words. "Your Honor, Kevin Bennett may have papers that say he finished classes, but papers cannot change a man's heart. Lisa Bennett lived with this man for 8 years. She knows what he is really like. She has seen his anger. She has felt his hands when he gets mad. And now she is afraid for her son." Lisa's lawyer showed different papers. These were police reports from times when neighbors called because they heard yelling and things breaking in Kevin and Lisa's house. There were hospital records from when Lisa had to go get help for a hurt arm and a black eye. There were pictures that Lisa had taken with her phone when Kevin broke chairs and put holes in the walls. Kevin's face got red when he saw these papers. His hands made fists, and he leaned forward in his chair. Judge Morgan watched him carefully. This was exactly the kind of behavior that worried her. Lisa's lawyer kept talking. "Kevin Bennett says he has changed, but a man who hurts his wife will hurt his child. Lisa is not trying to keep Kevin away from Danny to be mean. She is trying to keep Danny safe." Judge Morgan looked at Lisa. The woman was crying quietly, trying to wipe her eyes without anyone seeing. She looked so small and scared sitting there. Then she looked at Kevin. His face was getting redder and his jaw was tight. She could see him trying to control his temper, but she could also see how angry he was getting. Judge Morgan had dealt with men like Kevin before. They could act nice when they needed to, especially in front of a judge. They could say all the right words and show all the right papers. But when they got angry, all of that went away and their true nature came out. She decided to take a short break. "We will recess for 15 minutes, she said. Everyone stood up as she left the courtroom. During the break, Lisa went outside to make a phone call. Judge Morgan could see her through the window, talking on her phone and looking worried. Lisa came back in. She looked even more nervous than before. She whispered something to her lawyer that made the lawyer frown. When court started again, Kevin's lawyer called Kevin to come and sit in the witness chair. Kevin walked up there like he was not worried about anything. He put his hand on the Bible and promised to tell the truth. Kevin talked about how much he loved Danny. He said he had learned to control his temper. He said he just wanted to be a good father and have his son stay with him sometimes like other divorced fathers do. He talked in a calm voice and said all the right things. If Judge Morgan had not seen his face get red and his hands make fists, earlier she might have believed him. But then Lisa's lawyer got up to ask Kevin questions. She asked him about the times the police came to his house. She asked him about the holes in the walls and the broken furniture. She asked him why Lisa had to go to the hospital. With each question, Kevin got a little more angry. His voice got a little louder. His answers got shorter. Judge Morgan could see the real Kevin starting to show through his nice act. Lisa kept looking back at the courtroom doors. She checked her phone when she thought no one was looking. Judge Morgan wondered what Lisa was waiting for, but she was about to find out in a way that would change everything. Kevin sat in the witness chair and tried to look calm, but Judge Morgan could see his hands gripping the arms of the chair. His knuckles were white from holding on so tight. Lisa's lawyer walked closer to him with more papers in her hand. "Mr. Bennett, let me ask you about the night of March 15th last year. Do you remember that night?" Lisa's lawyer asked in her quiet but strong voice. Kevin's jaw got tight. "I remember lots of nights. Which one are you talking about?" "The night when the police came to your house because your neighbors heard screaming and things breaking. The, night when your wife had to lock herself in the bathroom." Kevin's face started to turn red again. "That was a long time ago. I was having a bad day at work. I lost my temper, but I never hurt anybody." Judge Morgan made notes on her pad. She had heard these words before from other men who could not control their anger. They always said they never hurt anybody, but the police reports told different stories. Lisa's lawyer held up a paper. "This is the police report from that night. It says they found broken dishes all over the kitchen floor. It says there was a hole in the living room wall. It says your wife Lisa had red marks on her arms." "I never touched her," Kevin said, his voice getting louder. "I may have thrown some things, but I never put my hands on her." "But you grabbed her arms to stop her from calling the police, didn't you?" Kevin was quiet for a long moment. Judge Morgan could see him trying to think of what to say. Finally, he answered, "Maybe I held her arms for a second, but that was not hurting her. I was just trying to calm her down." Judge Morgan shook her head. She had heard this excuse too many times. Men who grabbed and shook their wives always said they were trying to calm them down. Lisa's lawyer asked more questions about other nights when Kevin lost his temper. Each time, Kevin got a little more angry. His voice got louder, and his face got redder. He started moving around in his chair like he wanted to get up and leave. Judge Morgan looked over at Lisa. The poor woman was crying quietly and trying to hide it. Every time Kevin's voice got loud, Lisa would jump a little like she was scared. Judge Morgan could see that even now, even in a courtroom full of people, Lisa was still afraid of her ex-husband. After a while, Lisa's lawyer finished asking questions and Kevin went back to sit with his lawyer. Judge Morgan could see him whispering angrily to his lawyer, probably complaining about the questions. Then Lisa's lawyer called Lisa to come and tell her side of the story. Lisa walked slowly to the witness chair. Her legs looked shaky and her hands were trembling. She put her hand on the Bible and promised to tell the truth, but her voice was so quiet that Judge Morgan could barely hear her. "Mrs. Bennett, can you tell us about your marriage to Kevin Bennett?" Lisa's lawyer asked. Lisa took a deep breath. "At first, Kevin was nice to me. He bought me flowers and took me out to dinner, but after we got married, things changed. He would get angry about small things. If dinner was not ready when he got home, he would yell. If the house was not clean enough, he would start throwing things. Did he ever hurt you?" Lisa looked over at Kevin, who was staring at her with hard eyes. She looked scared, but she answered, anyway. Yes, he would grab my arms when he was mad. One time he pushed me and I fell down. Another time he shook me so hard that I got bruises on my shoulders. What about when Danny was around? Kevin tried not to lose his temper when Danny was there at first, but as Danny got older, Kevin got mad at him too. He would yell at Danny for making noise or for not cleaning up his toys fast enough. Judge Morgan felt sad hearing this. She thought about little Danny, only 7 years old, having to live in a house where his father yelled and threw things. Lisa kept talking. I tried to protect Danny. When Kevin started getting angry, I would send Danny to his room or outside to play. But Danny could still hear the yelling. He could still hear things breaking. He started having bad dreams and wetting his bed. Kevin's lawyer stood up. Objection, Your Honor. This is just what Mrs. Bennett says happened. We do not have any proof. Judge Morgan looked at the police reports and hospital records on her desk. There seems to be plenty of proof here, Counselor. Please continue, Mrs. Bennett. Lisa talked about the last fight that made her decide to leave Kevin. Danny was playing with his toy cars in the living room. Kevin came home from work mad about something. He told Danny to put his toys away, but Danny was only 6 then and he was playing. Kevin got madder and madder. Finally, he grabbed Danny's toys and threw them across the room. One of the cars hit the wall so hard it broke into pieces. What did Danny do? Danny started crying. He loved those cars. Kevin got even madder because Danny was crying. He yelled at Danny to stop crying like a baby. Then he grabbed Danny's arm and shook him. Judge Morgan felt her heart get heavy. This was exactly what she was afraid of. Kevin was not just hurting his wife anymore. He was starting to hurt his son too. That was when I knew I had to leave, Lisa said. I could let Kevin hurt me, but I could not let him hurt Danny. During all of this, Lisa kept looking back at the courtroom doors. She would check her phone quickly when she thought no one was looking. Judge Morgan wondered what Lisa was so worried about. Kevin's lawyer got up to ask Lisa questions. He tried to make it sound like Lisa was lying or making things up to keep Kevin away from Danny. But Lisa stuck to her story. Even though she was scared, she kept telling the truth about what Kevin had done. Mrs. Bennett, where is Danny right now? Kevin's lawyer asked. Lisa looked confused by the question. He is at school. My mother is supposed to pick him up when school ends. Are you sure about that? Lisa looked even more confused and worried. Yes, I am sure. Why are you asking me that? Judge Morgan wondered why Kevin's lawyer was asking about Danny's whereabouts too. Something about the question did not feel right. Kevin was smiling now, and it was not a nice smile. He looked like he knew something that no one else knew. Judge Morgan did not like that look at all. Just then, Lisa's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face went white. She whispered something urgent to her lawyer, who frowned and whispered back. Judge Morgan could see that something was very wrong, but she did not know what it was yet. Lisa stared at her phone and her face went completely white. Her hand started shaking so badly that she almost dropped the phone. She whispered something to her lawyer that made the lawyer's eyes go wide with worry. Judge Morgan could see that something was very wrong. Mrs. Bennett, is everything all right? Lisa looked up at Judge Morgan with tears in her eyes. Your Honor, my mother just texted me. She went to pick up Danny from school, but the school said someone already picked him. An hour ago? The courtroom went very quiet. Everyone looked at Kevin, who was still smiling that mean smile. His lawyer looked surprised and confused, like he did not know what was happening either. Who picked up your son? Judge Morgan asked, but she was already afraid she knew the answer. The school said it was his father, Lisa said, her voice breaking. But Kevin is supposed to be here. He is not supposed to go near Danny without permission from the court. Judge Morgan felt angry and worried at the same time. She looked at Kevin with hard eyes. Mr. Bennett, did you arrange for someone to pick up your son from school? Kevin stopped smiling and tried to look innocent. I do not know what she is talking about, Your Honor. I have been here all day. But Judge Morgan had been doing this job for a long time. She knew when people were lying. Bailiff, please call the school. and find out exactly what happened. While the bailiff made the phone call, Lisa was crying harder. He took Danny. I know he took Danny. He is trying to scare me into dropping the case. Kevin's lawyer looked worried now, too. He whispered something to Kevin, who whispered back angrily. Judge Morgan could tell that even Kevin's own lawyer did not know about this plan. The bailiff came back with information from the school. Your Honor, the school says that Kevin Bennett came to the school at noon. He had identification and said there was a family emergency. The school let him take Danny because his name is on the approved pickup list from before the divorce. Judge Morgan felt her anger growing. Mr. Bennett, I want you to tell me right now where your son is. I do not know where he is, Kevin said, but his voice sounded fake. Maybe someone else picked him up using my name. Lisa stood up from her chair. He is lying. He took Danny to try to make me give up. He wants me to be so scared that I will let him have custody. Judge Morgan banged her gavel to keep order in the courtroom. Mr. Bennett, you are in violation of the court's orders. You were told not to contact your son until this hearing was over. I am going to call the police to find your son. But before Judge Morgan could say anything else, there was a loud bang as the courtroom doors flew open. Everyone turned to look as a small boy came running into the room. It was Danny Bennett. His face was red and covered with tears. His school backpack was bouncing on his back as he ran. His clothes were messy and his hair was all mixed up. He looked scared and upset. The court security guard started to move toward Danny to stop him, but Judge Morgan held up her hand. Let him come, she said. Danny ran down the aisle between the chairs. He was breathing hard and crying. When he got close to the front of the courtroom, he stopped and looked around at all the grown-ups watching him. Then Danny took a deep breath and yelled as loud as he could, "He's lying!" The whole courtroom went silent. Everyone stared at the little boy who had just accused his father of lying in front of a judge. Judge Morgan leaned forward in her chair. Danny, what do you mean? But before Danny could answer, Lisa jumped up and ran to her son. Danny, are you okay? Where have you been? Danny ran to his mother and hugged her tight. Mommy, Daddy came to school and took me. He said there was an emergency, but there was no emergency. He lied to the teacher. Kevin's face went red with anger. Danny, you do not understand what happened. Come here and let me explain. But Danny moved closer to his mother and farther away from his father. No, I do not want to talk to you. You hurt me. Judge Morgan felt her heart sink. Danny, did your father hurt you? Danny looked up at Judge Morgan with his big, sad eyes. He grabbed my hand really hard when I said I wanted to call Mommy. He said I better not tell anybody or I would be in big trouble. Judge Morgan could see that Danny was holding his right hand close to his body like it hurt. Danny, can you show me your hand? Danny looked scared, but he slowly held up his right hand toward Judge Morgan. When she saw it, she felt like the air went out of her lungs. There were dark bruises around Danny's small wrist. The bruises were shaped like finger marks, like someone had grabbed his hand very hard. Some of the bruises were turning purple and looked very painful. Judge Morgan had seen a lot of terrible things in her courtroom over the years, but seeing those bruises on a 7-year-old boy's hand made her feel sick to her stomach. Oh my God, Lisa whispered when she saw Danny's hand. Kevin, how could you do this to your own son? Kevin stood up quickly, his chair falling backward. That is not what happened. He fell down while we were walking. I was trying to help him up. But Judge Morgan was not listening to Kevin's lies anymore. She could see the truth right in front of her. The bruises on Danny's hand were clearly from being grabbed too hard by an adult's strong fingers. Danny looked up at his mother with tears rolling down his face. Daddy took me to the park and tried to make me promise to say nice things about him. When I said I wanted to call you, he got really mad. He grabbed my hand and squeezed it really hard. It hurt so much, Mommy. Then what happened? Judge Morgan asked gently. I pulled away and ran. Daddy yelled at me to come back, but I kept running. I remembered that you said the court was downtown near the big buildings. I ran and ran until I found this place. Judge Morgan looked at this brave little boy who had run through the streets of downtown to find help. Danny had been smart enough to know that his father was trying to make him lie, and brave enough to run away and find the courtroom to tell the truth. She looked at Kevin, who was standing there with his mouth open, knowing that his plan had failed, completely. Instead of scaring Lisa into giving up, he had just proved that everything she said about him was true. Judge Morgan stood up from her chair and looked at the bruises on Danny's small hand. Her heart was beating fast with anger and sadness. In all her years as a judge, she had never seen such clear proof of child abuse right in front of her eyes. "Bailiff, please clear the courtroom of all visitors," she said in a strong voice. "This is now a matter of child safety." The few people who had been watching the hearing got up and left quickly. Now it was just Judge Morgan, the lawyers, Kevin, Lisa, and little Danny in the big courtroom. Judge Morgan came down from behind her desk and knelt down so she was at Danny's eye level. "Danny, I need you to be very brave and tell me exactly what happened today. Can you do that for me?" Danny wiped his nose with his good hand and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Start from the beginning. What happened when your father came to school?" Danny took a shaky breath. "I was in my classroom doing math problems. Mrs. Johnson came and said my daddy was here to pick me up because there was an emergency with my grandma." Judge Morgan looked over at Kevin, who was now sitting back down but still looked angry. "What did you think about that?" "I was scared because I love my grandma. But when I got to the office, Daddy did not look sad like there was really an emergency. He looked happy, like when he used to smile before he got mad." Lisa was holding Danny's shoulder gently, trying to comfort him. Judge Morgan could see that Lisa was trying not to cry while her son told his story. "Then what happened?" Judge Morgan asked. "Daddy took me to his car and we drove to the park. I asked him about Grandma and he said she was fine. I said that was good. But then I was confused because he said there was an emergency." Kevin started to say something, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm to stop him. Judge Morgan was glad because she wanted to hear Danny's story without interruption. Danny continued. "At the park, Daddy bought me ice cream and we sat on a bench. He started asking me questions about living with Mommy. He asked if Mommy was mean to me or if she had boyfriends or if she left me alone." "What did you tell him?" "I told him the truth. I said Mommy is nice to me and she does not have boyfriends and she never leaves me alone. But Daddy did not like those answers. He got that look in his eyes that he used to get before he would yell." Judge Morgan knew that look. She had seen it on Kevin's face during the hearing when he started getting angry. "Then Daddy started telling me what I should say if anyone asked me about him. He said I should say that he never yelled at me or Mommy. He said I should say that I missed him and wanted to live with him sometimes." "But that was not true, was it?" Danny shook his head. "No, ma'am. Daddy did yell at us. He broke my toy cars and made holes in the walls. I do not want to live with him because he scares me." Judge Morgan looked at Kevin again. His face was getting red and she could see his hands making fists again, even now when he was supposed to be on his best behavior. "What happened when you told your father you did not want to say those things?" Danny's voice got quieter. "I said I wanted to call Mommy. I said I wanted to go home. Daddy got really mad then. He said I was being a bad boy and that I was going to get Mommy in trouble. Then what? I got scared and I tried to run away, but Daddy grabbed my hand." Danny held up his bruised wrist. "He grabbed it really hard and it hurt so much. He said if I told anyone what really happened at home, something bad would happen to Mommy." Lisa started crying when she heard this. Judge Morgan felt her anger at Kevin getting stronger and stronger. "How did you get away?" "Daddy's phone rang and he let go of my hand to answer it. I ran as fast as I could. Daddy yelled at me to come back, but I kept running. I was scared he would catch me and hurt me more." Judge Morgan was amazed at how smart and brave this little boy was. "How did you know to come to the courthouse?" "I remembered that Mommy said she had to go to court today to talk to a judge about me. I asked some people on the street where the courthouse was. A nice lady pointed to this big building. I ran up all the stairs looking for Mommy. Danny had run through downtown streets, scared and hurt, looking for his mother in safety." Judge Morgan thought about how frightened he must have been. "Danny, I need to ask you something very important. Has your father ever grabbed you like this before?" Danny looked down at the floor, sometimes, when I was loud or when I did not clean up my toys fast enough, but never as hard as today. Today really hurt." Judge Morgan stood up and walked over to where Kevin was sitting. Kevin looked up at her with eyes that were trying to look innocent, but Judge Morgan could see right through him. "Mr. Bennett, you violated my direct orders by taking your son from school. You lied to school officials about an emergency. You attempted to coach your child to lie in court, and most seriously, you physically abused your son by grabbing his wrist hard enough to leave bruises." Kevin's lawyer tried to speak. "Your Honor, my client says the boy fell down and he was trying to help him up." Judge Morgan looked at the lawyer with disappointment. "Counselor, I can see the finger marks on this child's wrist. Those bruises were made by an adult hand gripping too tightly. There is no other explanation." She turned back to Kevin. "Mr. Bennett, you have shown me today exactly why your ex-wife is afraid to let you have custody of your son. You have proven that you cannot control your temper, even with a 7-year-old child." Kevin finally spoke up, his voice getting loud. "That boy is lying. He is just trying to make me look bad because his mother told him to." Judge Morgan shook her head. "Mr. Bennett, your son has physical injuries that match his story exactly. A 7-year-old child cannot fake bruises like these." She looked at Danny, who was still standing close to his mother. "Danny, you were very brave to come here and tell the truth. You did the right thing." Danny looked up at her with his big eyes. "Are you going to make sure Daddy cannot hurt me or Mommy anymore?" Judge Morgan smiled at him for the first time that day. "Yes, Danny. I am going to make sure you and your mother are safe." Judge Morgan walked back to her desk and picked up her phone. She called for the court medical staff to come and look at Danny's injured hand. She also called for Child Protective Services and the police to come to the courtroom right away. Kevin heard her making these calls and started to panic. Your Honor, you are making a big mistake. I love my son. I would never hurt him on purpose. This is all just a misunderstanding." Judge Morgan looked at Kevin with cold eyes. "Mr. Bennett, the evidence is right here in front of me. Your son has bruises on his wrist from your fingers. He ran away from you because he was scared. There is no misunderstanding." Kevin's lawyer whispered something to him, probably telling him to be quiet, but Kevin was too angry to listen. "That boy has been turned against me by his mother. She has been filling his head with lies about me. Mr. Bennett, I am warning you to control yourself," Judge Morgan said. "You are already in serious trouble. Do not make it worse by losing your temper in my courtroom." But Kevin could not control himself anymore. All the anger he had been trying to hide came pouring out. "This is not fair. I am his father. I have rights. You cannot take my son away from me." Judge Morgan watched Kevin carefully. This was exactly the behavior that Lisa and Danny had been afraid of. Kevin was showing everyone in the courtroom what he was really like when things did not go his way. Danny moved closer to his mother and held onto her arm. "Mommy, he is getting mad again," he whispered. Lisa hugged her son and spoke softly to him. "It is okay, baby. The judge is here to protect us. Daddy cannot hurt us anymore." A few minutes later, a nurse came into the courtroom to look at Danny's hand. She was a kind woman with gray hair who spoke very gently to Danny. "Hi there, sweetheart. I need to look at your hand to make sure you are okay. Is that all right?" Danny nodded and held out his injured hand. The nurse looked at it carefully and took pictures of the bruises. She also measured them and wrote notes on a form. "These are definitely grip marks from an adult hand," the nurse told Judge Morgan. "The bruises are fresh, probably from this morning. They were caused by someone squeezing very hard." Kevin's lawyer tried one more time to defend his client. "Your Honor, children bruise easily. Maybe it looks worse than it really is." The nurse shook her head. "I have been working with children for 20 years. These bruises required significant force. A child this size would have been in considerable pain." Judge Morgan thanked the nurse and then turned her attention back to the case. 2 police officers had arrived and were waiting for her instructions. "Officers, I need you to arrest Mr. Kevin Bennett for violation of court orders, child endangerment, and assault on a minor." Kevin jumped up from his chair so fast that it fell over again. "You cannot arrest me. I am his father. I was just trying to talk to my son." The police officers moved toward Kevin, but he backed away from them. "This is crazy. I never hurt anybody. "That boy is lying!" One of the police officers spoke calmly to Kevin. "Sir, you need to come with us. Do not make this harder than it has to be." Kevin looked around the courtroom like a trapped animal. He looked at his lawyer, who just shook his head sadly. He looked at Lisa and Danny, who were holding each other tightly. Finally, he looked at Judge Morgan, who was watching him with no sympathy at all. "This is not over," Kevin said as the police officers put handcuffs on him. "I will fight this. I will get my son back." Judge Morgan stood up. "Mr. Bennett, you will have no contact with your son or your ex-wife until this matter is fully investigated. I am issuing a restraining order effective immediately." As the police officers led Kevin out of the courtroom, he was still yelling about how unfair everything was. But Judge Morgan was not listening to him anymore. Her attention was on Danny and Lisa. A social worker from Child Protective Services had arrived and was talking quietly with Lisa about what would happen next. They would need to take more pictures of Danny's bruises and get a full report from the doctor. There would be more court hearings to make sure Danny stayed safe. Judge Morgan came down from her desk again and knelt next to Danny. "Danny, I want you to know that you did something very brave today. You told the truth even when it was scary. That took a lot of courage." Danny looked up at her with his big eyes. "Will Daddy go to jail?" "Your daddy is going to get help to learn how to control his anger, and you and your mommy will be safe. That is the most important thing." "Will I have to see him again?" Judge Morgan thought carefully about how to answer. "Not until we are sure that you will be safe. And when you are older, you can decide for yourself if you want to see him." Danny seemed satisfied with that answer. He hugged his mother tighter and said, "I love you, Mommy." Lisa kissed the top of his head. "I love you too, baby. We are going to be okay now." Judge Morgan went back to her desk and made her final notes on the case. She awarded full custody of Danny to Lisa. She canceled all of Kevin's visitation rights until he could prove that he was no longer a danger to his son. She also ordered Kevin to stay away from both Lisa and Danny. As Lisa and Danny got ready to leave the courtroom, Judge Morgan called them over to her desk one more time. "Mrs. Bennett, I want you to know that you did the right thing by fighting. For your son's safety. It could not have been easy to go against your ex-husband." Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor. I was so scared that no one would believe me." "And Danny," Judge Morgan said, looking at the little boy, "you are one of the bravest people I have ever met. You ran through the city to find help when you were scared and hurt. You told the truth even when it was hard. You should be very proud of yourself." Danny smiled for the first time that day. "Thank you, Judge Morgan. You are nice." As Lisa and Danny walked out of the courtroom together, Judge Morgan felt satisfied that justice had been done. A little boy's courage and 2 simple words had saved him from years of abuse. The bruises on his hand would heal, but the lesson he learned about standing up for the truth would stay with him forever. Judge Morgan had seen many cases in her career, but she would always remember the day when a 7-year-old boy burst into her courtroom and changed everything with the words, "He's lying." Sometimes the smallest voices tell the biggest truths.